All right, today we're grabbing our magnifying glasses and putting on our detective hats because we are launching a full-blown investigation into one of the most explosive books in all of philosophy, Friedrich Nietzsche's Genealogy of Morals. What we're going to do is trace our most basic values, what we call good and evil, all the way back to where they came from. Let's get right into it.
Nietzsche kicks things off with this really enigmatic line. Think about it. He's saying that we, the ones who are so proud of all our knowledge, we've never actually bothered to look at ourselves. The most fundamental thing about us, our own moral compass, is a total mystery. It's like we're strangers to ourselves.
And this is the central question of our whole investigation. See, Nietzsche isn't just asking what is good or evil. He's going a layer deeper. He's asking why we even came up with these ideas in the first place. He wants to go back to the scene of the crime, figure out how these values were invented, and then ask the big one, are they actually any good for us? Are they helping us, or are they a poison we've been drinking for centuries?
Okay, so here's our game plan for cracking this case. We're going to start with the dangerous question itself. Then we'll uncover the two totally different sources of morality. From there, we'll look into how guilt was created, see how suffering got its meaning, and finally, we'll arrive at Nietzsche's absolutely shocking verdict.
So let's dive in. You gotta understand, before Nietzsche, pretty much everyone just assumed morality was, well, good. It was from God, or it was just common sense. But Nietzsche comes along and asks something truly terrifying. What if our morality, the very thing we think makes us noble, is actually a sign that we're sick?
And this is the core of his whole project. He's not just questioning one or two moral rules, he's putting the entire concept of morality on trial. For the first time ever, he says, we have to stop just assuming that things like pity and humility are good. We have to ask, what is the value of these values? It's a massive, unsettling idea that aims to shake the very foundations of our civilization.
Okay, on to our first major clue. As Nietzsche digs into the past, he realizes that the word good didn't always mean what we think it means today. In fact, he finds that there were two completely opposite moral systems, born from two totally different groups of people who had wildly different ideas of what good even was.
And this lays out the conflict perfectly. On one side, you have master morality. This came from the nobles, the strong, the powerful. They basically looked at themselves, at their strength and their health, and said, yeah, this is good. It was a powerful yes to life. Anyone who wasn't like them, well, they were just bad, kind of as an afterthought. But then something else starts brewing from the other side. That's slave morality. For them, it's all reactive. They first look at their powerful masters and say, that is evil. And only then do they look back at themselves and say, so good must be everything they're not. Humble, pitiful, meek.
So where did this huge flip happen? Well, Nietzsche points his finger at a specific group. He argues it was the priestly class in ancient Judaism that kicked off what he calls the slave revolt in morals. He claims that since they couldn't win on the battlefield, they got their revenge on a spiritual level. They performed this incredible feat of flipping all the values upside down, turning what was noble into something evil.
Now, the psychological fuel for this whole revolution is a concept Nietzsche calls ressentiment. And this isn't just being upset. It's a deep, poisonous, and weirdly creative kind of hatred. Imagine being powerless, just stewing in resentment. You can't fight back directly, so what do? Your hatred gets inventive. It creates a whole new moral universe where your weakness is relabeled as a virtue, and your oppressor's strength is now the ultimate sin. It's a morality, Nietzsche says, born not out of love, but out of a simmering hatred that needed an outlet.
All right, next clue. How did this new morality actually dig its claws into us? How did it create this brand new, awful kind of suffering we call guilt? Where in the world did the bad conscience come from?
This lays out Nietzsche's psychological horror story perfectly. Think about it. When humans were crammed together into societies and civilizations, all of our wild animal instincts, our aggression, our will to dominate, suddenly had nowhere to go. You can't just go and attack your neighbor anymore, so what happened? Those instincts turned inward. We started attacking ourselves, and that, Nietzsche says, is how we invented the human soul, and along with it, the bad conscience.
So for Nietzsche, that nagging little voice in your head, we call it conscience, that's not the voice of God. It's the sound of an animal that's been caged and has started to claw at itself. He sees it as a profound sickness, a form of self-torture that began the moment we turned against our own nature. It is, as he puts it, the suffering of man from the disease called man.
So, picture this. You've got a whole humanity that's suffering inside, eaten up by guilt. It's a miserable existence, and people are desperate for a reason for all this pain. And right into that void steps a very clever figure, the ascetic priest. He sees all this misery, and he finds a way to use it, to give it a powerful and, in Nietzsche's view, a terrible new meaning.
The main weapon in the priest's arsenal is something called the ascetic ideal. What is that? It's basically the idea that this life, this messy, passionate, earthly life, is a mistake. It's flawed. And the goal is to deny all our natural instincts and reject this world for a better, higher world somewhere else. It's a philosophy that is fundamentally against life itself.
And here is the priest's absolute stroke of genius. He doesn't actually cure anyone's suffering. Not at all. Instead, he gives it a meaning. He goes to the suffering person and says, "You know why you're in pain. It's your fault. You are a sinner, and this pain is your just punishment." By inventing the concept of sin, the priest turns himself into the only doctor who can treat this new disease, a disease he helped invent. It gives him incredible power over the herd. Okay, so we followed the breadcrumbs, from the masters and slaves to the invention of guilt, all the way to the ascetic priest. It's time to close the case file. What's the final verdict of Nietzsche's investigation? What has our morality actually become?
Let's just run through the whole story one more time. It all started with the morality of the strong, a big yes to life. Then came the revolt from the weak, powered by that creative resentment. That revolt only worked because civilization forced us to turn our instincts inward, creating guilt. And finally, the priest came along and weaponized that guilt, locking in a morality that says no to life on Earth.
And this brings us to the absolutely explosive conclusion. For Nietzsche, what we call morality today isn't some great achievement. It's the end result of a 2,000-year-long takeover by a worldview born from weakness, sickness, and deep-seated resentment. All of our most precious values, things like pity, humility, self-sacrifice, he sees them not as virtues, but as the clever weapons the powerless use to bring everyone else down to their level.
So he leaves us with this final, deeply uncomfortable question. A question for you, for me, for everyone. What if being a good man, by today's standards, is actually a step backward for the human species? What if our whole moral system isn't our salvation, but is in fact the danger of dangers, the very thing holding us back from becoming something greater? That's the challenge, and it's a tough one to just shake off.